1-inch Xiao Yi, here's the reward. It's a low-grade heavenly weapon and a low-grade monarch arts. Thundercloud Clan, what a generous offer. On the west side of Capital of Chaos, in a pile of ruins, Xiao Yan slowly walked out. In his hand was a tattered list of names. In the ruins lay 3 emperors who had lost consciousness. The fierce battle just now had caused the stone house, which had been out of repair for a long time, to completely collapse. A group of elders from the Yunluo Academy must have also noticed the changes in the Capital of Chaos. These people have recently entered the Capital of Chaos. They do not belong to any faction that is in a state of chaos. Looking at the 3 dead men behind him, Xiao Yan pondered for a moment. He had also asked about their identities just now. They belonged to a small force not far from the Capital of Chaos, and the reason they entered the Capital of Chaos was to seek greater benefits. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel puzzled. According to what he had heard before, the Capital of Chaos was extremely xenophobic. It was extremely difficult for any force to infiltrate this place. But now, a small force could actually bring all the forces of their sect into this place. The culprit is Black Nether Emperor from the Dark World. Waving the ranking list in his hand, Xiao Yan let out a cold snort. The crimson gold flame in his hand surged up and instantly burned the ranking list to ashes. Within the Capital of Chaos, the Bear of Chaos resided here. As for the 2 emperors and 3 emperors, that was how they addressed the sect master, who was the most powerful amongst the chaotic 100 Bells. Black Nether Emperor was one of the 3 emperors. According to the legends, his strength had already reached the level of the twin sovereigns, who had disappeared for many years. The 2 sovereigns were mighty figures on par with the 2 deans of the Yunluo Academy. Black Nether Emperor's ability was enough to dominate the Capital of Chaos. As he shuttled through the streets and alleys, Xiao Yan unleashed all of his soul energy and carefully observed his surroundings. From the words of the 3 men he killed just now, Xiao Yan knew that ever since the chaotic slaughter list was released, the number of people who obtained wealth through this method had increased tremendously. The entire Capital of Chaos was filled with blood and killing intent because of this. Ah! Suddenly, a sharp voice resounded in the distance. In the next moment, a man with disheveled hair was running towards Xiao Yan in a sorry state. His body was covered in blood. When he saw Xiao Yan, a light of survival emerged in his eyes. Just as he was about to speak, Hong Long, the fear on the man's face froze at the same time, and he fell to the ground unwillingly. When the man fell, Xiao Yan saw the situation in the distance. A woman in black clothes had a cold expression on her face. She put away the bow and arrow in her hand and stepped on the ground with the tip of her foot. She had already stepped on the back of the man. Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes and met the black-clothed woman's cold gaze. There was no fear in his eyes. The woman's face was delicate and beautiful, and there was a soul-stirring temptation between her eyebrows. From the aura that was faintly emitted from the latter's body, it could be seen that the strength of this black-clothed woman was about to reach the monarch emperor. The girl in black also looked at Xiao Yan and frowned slightly. As if she had sensed that the former was not easy to deal with, the killing intent in her eyes quickly dissipated. Without saying anything, she flipped her palm. He took out a sharp blade and turned the man under his feet over. He directly cut open the man's stomach and then suddenly dug out his palm. He pulled out the dead man's heart, which was emitting waves of hot air. It was extremely bloody. "Sorry to bother you," the black-clothed lady gently smiled at Xiao Yan. Her toes stepped on the ground and her body soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, she had disappeared without a trace. Xiao Yan frowned. In the end, he did not make a move. If others did not offend him, he would not offend them. In a place like this, it was really not a place to randomly make a move. Ka! After taking a few steps, a fierce glint suddenly flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. His body rushed forward in a lightning-like manner. In the next moment, a sharp blade that flashed with a cold light had ruthlessly stabbed the spot where Xiao Yan had been standing earlier. The ground was directly penetrated and numerous cracks swiftly spread. "I can't help it. I only need a heart. This bounty will be completed. Since you have bumped into me, please fulfill my wish." The woman in black turned around and stood firmly on the ground. A black dagger appeared on her jade-like left hand. With her sharp eyes, she looked at Xiao Yan coldly. Her scarlet tongue lightly licked the dagger as she said with a charming smile, "Buzz." Xiao Yan turned around and stretched out his right hand. The blue flame ruler hit the ground hard. He smiled and looked at the woman in black and said, "I wanted to be gentle with you. Since you are courting death, don't blame me. The heart of a monarch emperor is a good thing." The black-clothed woman laughed, and her tongue lightly traced her red lips. There was an endless temptation. Dark night light. With a light movement of her red lips, the dagger and the sharp blade in the woman's hand sliced through the air at a rapid speed. It was as if a faint crack had been cut through space. Endless black light surged out from the crack, instantly covering the entire area as if it were night. She could not even see her fingers in front of her eyes. "I will make you die without feeling any pain." The moment the black light cut off his line of sight, the black-clothed woman's seductive voice appeared in Xiao Yan's ears without any warning. In the next moment, a cold light suddenly appeared in the night sky. Xiao Yan could even feel a trace of coldness pressing down on his throat. Interesting. Xiao Yan did not panic when he saw this. He laughed loudly. The moment before the cold light was about to pierce his throat, Xiao Yan did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward and faced the cold light. Kai. The moment Xiao Yan charged forward, a dagger quietly cut through the spot where Xiao Yan had been standing earlier. The cold light in front of the latter strangely disappeared. Huh? When she saw that Xiao Yan had actually dodged her attack, a woman's surprised voice was heard in the dark night. It was the first time that her assassination attempt had failed. Swoosh. The moment the surprised voice fell, Xiao Yan's eyes flashed. The blue flame ruler in his hand moved with a loud bang, perfectly blocking the sharp blade that was about to pierce his chest. At the same time, his 5 fingers turned into claws and pierced through the void, grabbing one of the black-clothed woman's arms. The dagger in the latter's hand was less than half an inch away from Xiao Yan. "Do you know how I saw you clearly?" Xiao Yan seemed to have sensed the rapid decline of the lady's aura. He laughed softly. In the next moment, the origin cheese around his body surged. The crimson gold flames surged out from his body and instantly scattered the endless black glow. "Your dark space is useless in front of me." A wisp of crimson gold flames surged into Xiao Yan's eyes. He looked at the black-clothed lady in front of him, whose arm was grabbed by him. His expression was cold. The enchanting expression of the black-clothed woman changed slightly. Immediately, she calmed down. With a shake of her 5 fingers, the tightly clenched dagger in her hand rushed towards Xiao Yan's eyes. Taking advantage of the moment when Xiao Yan loosened his grip, the black-clothed woman's body withdrew explosively. She was just like a black shadow as she swiftly rushed into the distance. Crack! Both of her fingers were as fast as lightning. They were directly caught by the black dagger in front of her. She glanced at the grayish-black fog that was flowing out between her fingers. Xiao Yan snorted coldly. The flames surged and incinerated the poison fog. Trying to run, Xiao Yan put away the high-grade spirit weapon dagger and looked in the direction where the black-clothed lady had left. It was as if the power of stars was surging beneath his feet, and his figure flashed out in an instant. The Tao of Assassination. 1 hit. What kind of flame is that? It can actually refine the black light. In a hidden dark corner, the black-clothed woman seemed to have merged into the darkness. There was not the slightest fluctuation in her aura. At this moment, she was muttering to herself. That flame is simply the nemesis of the black light. Grandmaster has never mentioned it before. The black-clothed woman held her breath as she leaned against the wall. This kind of concealment technique could virtually completely suppress one's aura. Unless one's strength was 2 levels higher than her, they would not be able to detect it at all. "I say, weren't you very arrogant just now? Why are you hiding here sneakily?" Just as the black-clothed woman was lost in her thoughts, Xiao Yan's voice suddenly sounded from above. Although his voice was soft, it was like a thunderclap to the former's ears. "To swish." The black-clothed lady was greatly shocked in her heart. Without the slightest hesitation, her body had already moved swiftly against the wall. In an instant, she had already left the spot where she had stood earlier. "You? Who are you? How can you see through my hidden aura technique?" The black-clothed lady inhaled a deep breath of air and forcefully said in a calm manner. "So much nonsense." Xiao Yan sneered. His body moved violently like a star. The blue flame ruler in his hand whistled down and struck towards the girl's head. He had no compassion for the girl in front of him. The girl in black was obviously shocked by Xiao Yan's sudden speed. With a flip of her hands, over 100 black needles appeared. Hong Long, a rainstorm of pear blossoms shot out from her fingertips. Each of the thin needles emitted a cold light that was comparable to the power of a low-level spirit weapon. Kai! 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 The thin needle pierced through the air and came over. The sound that came over made people feel a chill run down their backs. It was as if their entire bodies had been pierced through, and their minds were in a state of unconsciousness for a moment. Swoosh! Xiao Yan bit the tip of his tongue, and suddenly woke himself up. He swept his palm across. A crimson gold flame followed and wrapped around the hundreds of fine needles. Only then did the feeling that caused one's entire body to feel cold dissipate. Pooh! A trace of determination flashed in the black-clothed woman's sharp eyes. She quickly bit the tip of her tongue and a drop of golden blood essence shot into the flame in front of her. It turned into bits of blood chi and poured into the hundreds of thin needles. Buzz! An inexplicable force was transmitted. Xiao Yan's wrist shook and the crimson gold flame in front of him was almost extinguished. In the next moment, nearly 100 thin needles that were trapped by the flame broke free and shot towards Xiao Yan. Crack! Xiao Yan's expression was calm. His hand, which was holding onto the blue flame ruler, suddenly stopped. The wind whistled and stood in front of him. In an instant, a clanging sound resounded beside their ears. The attack of nearly 100 fine needles was blocked and they were no longer able to take another step forward. Heavenly weapon? The pale face of the black-clothed lady changed when she saw that the blue flame ruler had blocked all of her black rain poison needles. She looked at Xiao Yan in disbelief. Just who was this fellow? He was merely at the monarch emperor, yet he had the protection of a heavenly weapon. While she was stunned, the black-clothed woman suddenly turned around and threw a punch. The wall behind her shattered with a loud bang. As dust filled the air, she had already turned into a black shadow and fled. Facing Xiao Yan, she really did not know what method she should use to win. It's gone again. Flames surged into his eyes. Xiao Yan looked around him. His soul energy covered the sky and covered the earth. He did not find any trace of the black-clothed woman. He frowned and extended his palm. The crimson gold flame in his palm danced as if it was sensing something. Xiao, how is it? Xiao Yan wasn't in a hurry to chase after her. He quietly stood where he was and asked in his heart. Don't worry. That guy has the chi of monarch flame on him. He won't be able to escape. But then again, these fine needles are pretty good. All of them are low-grade spirit weapons. They should be a combination of monarch skill. The voice of the Xiao sounded in Xiao Yan's mind with a hint of pride. Indeed, not bad. Xiao Yan nodded his head. With a wave of his hand, the hundreds of fine needles that fell to the ground flew into the sky. They were all stored into the storage ring by Xiao Yan. The power of these thin needles was extremely powerful. If it wasn't for the fact that the blue flame ruler had already become a mid-grade heavenly weapon, it might not have been able to withstand the fierce attack of these needles. She's injured and won't be able to escape very far. However, this escaping movement technique isn't bad. He recalled the soundless movement technique that the black-clothed woman displayed when she fled. It actually concealed her entire aura. This was the first time he had seen such a movement technique. We'll know when we catch her. The Xiao chuckled and said indifferently. Then, it jumped off Xiao Yan's shoulder and closed its eyes. It seemed as if it was sensing something. After a moment, it slowly opened its eyes and looked at Xiao Yan. With a strange smile, it said, "This guy is still nearby." That's not strange. The cultivation technique she cultivates should be the kind of ability that can deliver a fatal blow in the darkness, killing people in an instant when they are unprepared, Xiao Yan smiled. His eyes shifted slightly as he heard the soft voice of the Xiao beside his ear. His eyes looked towards a certain spot in the distance without leaving a trace. In the distant ruins, under a shadow, an undetectable black shadow was quietly hiding in it. Its cold eyes were staring at Xiao Yan in the distance. Its hands were holding a black dagger and a sharp blade. As long as Xiao Yan relaxed even the slightest bit, she would take his head at lightning speed. All of a sudden, a chill ran down the back of the black-clothed woman. At that moment, she seemed to have sensed something. How is that possible? The breath-concealing technique is a high-ranked monarch spell. Unless one is at the Emperor cultivation or above, how could he discover it? The black-clothed woman was slightly shocked. Her eyes paused, and she suddenly saw an almost imperceptible drop of blue water stuck tightly to the handle of the black dagger in her hand. Her pupils suddenly shrank to the size of pinholes. Without waiting for the woman in black to make a move, a whistling sound suddenly sounded. In the next moment, the ruins had already exploded with a loud bang. Xiao Yan violently smashed the ground with the blue flame ruler in his hand. In an instant, numerous ferocious cracks spread out from the center of the cracks. Puff! The woman in black was hit by the huge impact, and she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. As dust filled the air, she didn't even have time to use her movement technique. Swish! A few flames surged over, instantly trapping the woman in black's hands and feet. A burning pain came from her wrists and ankles, causing her to suck in a breath of cold air. Boom! The blue flame ruler suddenly smashed onto the ground. Xiao Yan coldly looked at the black-clothed woman who was sitting motionlessly on the ground, his eyes not showing a trace of pity. "Don't kill me, my martial ancestor. Do you know who it is?" Seeing Xiao Yan's cold gaze, the black-clothed woman felt a chill run down her spine, and she hurriedly said in a cold voice, "Who is it?" Xiao Yan sneered in his heart when he heard this. He had a faint smile on his face as he spoke. "Assassinating the ghost venerable, Li Xianfeng. Have you heard of it?" The black-clothed woman gritted her teeth and spoke slowly. Although she had only seen a shadow of Li Xianfeng all these years, however, this didn't stop her from using him as her backer. Li Xianfeng? When Xiao Yan heard this name, he was slightly stunned. His blurry memories slowly became clear, and he remembered the owner of this name. Isn't he the third chief of Mercenary Alliance? Why is he in Capital of Chaos now? Xiao Yan's curiosity was aroused for a moment. He thought of Li Xianfeng, Li Zan, and the two law enforcers of Nether Domain who had wreaked havoc in Spirit Heaven Mansion. Mercenary Alliance is in the Capital of Chaos. There is a branch of Mercenary Alliance in the Capital of Chaos. The person in charge of this branch is the Grand Master. Seeing that Xiao Yan seemed to know about Li Xianfeng, the black-clothed girl was delighted in her heart, but she still spoke with a cold expression. The Grandmaster's strength has already reached the Heavenly Sovereign for many years. Even the 3 sovereigns and 2 emperors of Capital of Chaos have to show respect to the Grand Master. His strength is beyond your imagination. I naturally know his strength. Xiao Yan smiled. Back then, Li Xianfeng was merely a phantom. His own strength was definitely beyond anyone's imagination. Let me go. Otherwise, if Martial Ancestor finds out about this, with his elusive assassination technique, no one will be able to save you. Hearing Xiao Yan's tone loosen slightly, the black-clothed woman couldn't help but reveal a trace of joy on her face as she hurriedly said, "This." Xiao Yan glanced at the black-clothed lady with an indifferent expression. Suddenly, he laughed coldly. His 5 fingers were suddenly clenched tightly. The flame that trapped the ladder swiftly merged into her body. Before she could let out a miserable cry, the life force within her body had quietly disappeared. The Tao of assassination is to hide in the dark and take someone's life. If I let you go, I'm afraid that the one who will die will be me. Xiao Yan expressionlessly looked at the black-clothed woman. He retracted his palm and muttered to himself. 1 inch that time, I met 2 men from the Mercenary Alliance with Mu Yuyang in the Silver Moon Mountain. I didn't expect Li Xianfeng to be the person in charge of this branch. After picking up the storage ring from the black-clothed woman, Xiao Yan thought for a while. Then he pulled the corpse of the former into the pile of ruins and buried it. After that, he quickly left this place. Although this was a sparsely populated place in Capital of Chaos, no one was sure if the battle just now had attracted the attention of others. After running for a while, Xiao Yan finally slowed down. He walked in the crowd and was extremely inconspicuous. A reward? After carefully searching the storage ring that was taken from the black-clothed woman's hand, he took out one of the tokens. Xiao Yan frowned when he saw the 3 burning golden words on it. He then looked at the back of the token. This token was related to the Chaotic Slaughter List. It was the person who had received the mission from the Chaotic Slaughter List. After the mission was completed, the person would receive the corresponding reward through the reward. Obtain the hearts of 100 Monarch Spirit and above experts? Seeing the mission on the reward, Xiao Yan coldly snorted. Just as he was about to crush the reward in his hand, a thought suddenly occurred to him. His soul force entered the storage ring and shockingly saw rows of transparent crystal tanks placed within. Each crystal container had a heart that was beating slowly. 99. Xiao Yan quickly scanned the crystal jars and knew the number of them. He pondered for a moment and then smiled. He put the bounty back into the storage ring. As far as he knew, the place where the bounty was handed over was the many hanging pavilions under the command of the people of the Dark Abyss. Through these places, it was most likely that he would get what he wanted. Besides the bounty, Xiao Yan also discovered other things within the storage ring. Of course, the biggest reward was still the Monarch spell, which was called the Hidden Breath Technique. Strictly speaking, the Hidden Breath Technique was not a movement technique, but a type of Qi technique, the Monarch skill. It had a unique advantage when it came to concealing one's aura. It could be said that this art of hidden breath. It was a mandatory cultivation technique for every cultivator who cultivated the Tao of Assassination. He had obtained many good things. Xiao Yan's heart also inexplicably became lighter, especially when it came to this method of concealment. He was even more fond of it. This thing was totally a timely help to him. At that time, with the double insurance of the concealment technique and soul power, even experts who were far stronger than him would not be able to detect it at all. Currently, the area where Xiao Yan was located was under the jurisdiction of the Spirit Kings. The Spirit Kings were in the midst of chaos. They were the top 10 members of the huge sect. Although the sect master wasn't as powerful as the 3 sovereigns and 2 emperors, he was still a disciple of the sect. He called himself the Spirit King. No one denied it. Because of this, even though the announcement of the chaotic murder list had caused the entire capital of chaos to fall into an even greater chaos, the security here was still relatively good. After finding a medium-sized hostel, Xiao Yan went in and impatiently took out the method to conceal his breath. This kind of monarch spell, which belonged to the path of assassination, was what Xiao Yan urgently needed at the moment. The Tao of Concealment. It has no body, and no sound. It hides in the heaven and earth, and hides in the 8 desolates. The general outline of the technique of concealment could be considered to be majestic. The deeper one cultivated this kind of monarch spell, the more one would be able to understand it. If one reached the level of Li Xianfeng, using the technique of concealment, one could even hide in the space and become invisible. At that level, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a movement technique, the monarch skill. The Dark Underworld was located in the north of the capital of Chaos. They were extremely famous throughout the entire capital of Chaos. The territory they governed was incomparably huge, far surpassing the ordinary sect members. The strength of the sect members was incomparably strong, and no one dared to provoke them. The current Dark Underworld was even more famous than before. In just a few short months, countless hanging pavilions were quickly built under the orders of the Dark Underworld sect masters. The chaotic murder list system was also quickly established, and this list was released. It had completely changed the way of survival in the capital of Chaos. Under the stimulation of various interests, more and more people began to accept the inhumane missions on the chaotic slaughter list, the storm of capital of Chaos. Honglong, the headquarters of the Dark Underworld, was built on a dark plain. Around the plain, countless powerful sect members were patrolling with murderous intent. Each of their hands was once filled with blood. The headquarters of the Dark Underworld was majestic and imposing. The entrance was like a snake path, dark and terrifying. Every expert that entered was scared witless. How's the situation in Capital of Chaos? In a magnificent hall inside the headquarters, a middle-aged man in a black python robe walked down slowly from his seat. He looked at his capable subordinates below. Sect Master Lai is a wise man. Ever since the chaotic slaughter list was announced, the number of people who have entered the Capital of Chaos has increased greatly. In order to fight for all kinds of resources, the Capital of Chaos has been thrown into chaos. A slender and charming woman in a red dress smiled seductively at the middle-aged man and spoke in a charming voice. The messier the place, the better. This place has been peaceful for too long. What kind of bullshit rule did Heaven's surmounting monarch and profound emperor set? No external forces are allowed to enter. Without complicated forces, how can the name of Capital of Chaos be described as chaotic? The middle-aged man's face was thin, his cheekbones were protruding, and his eye sockets were sunken. There was a strange luster in his eyes. After hearing what was said, he laughed out loud and said in a clear voice, "Sect Master is wise and mighty. Currently, Heaven's surmounting monarch and profound emperor are nowhere to be found. In the entire Capital of Chaos, Sect Master is the only one who can look down upon the world. In the future, the Dark World will definitely become the #1 sect in Capital of Chaos." A young man with long golden hair, who looked gentle and gentle, said respectfully to the man in the python robe, "Those two old bastards, don't look down on them." Hearing this, the man in the python robe waved his sleeve. His sharp eyes suddenly looked at the blond man and said in a low voice, "What happened to the thing I asked you to do?" Hearing this, the blond man's body trembled. He hurriedly said, "Rest assured, sect master. Among the chaotic 100 sects, 8 of them have already been controlled by the dark underworld. Their sect master has been imprisoned and is waiting for you to go over." "All right. Although these gangs are weak, their combined strength can't be underestimated. I will find time to meet them one by one. Also, go to the Mercenary Alliance and tell Li Xianfeng that I want to discuss a deal with him." The man in the robe smiled coldly and said, "Deal?" The blond man was surprised and asked curiously, "A few days ago, the Mercenary Alliance's headquarters captured a severely injured low-grade holy beast. I want to talk to Li Xianfeng and ask him to bring this holy beast over." The man in the python robe looked at the blond man and said in a deep voice, "Yes." The blond man did not dare to be neglectful and hurriedly answered. Although he was puzzled by the sect master's order, he did not dare to say anything. Last time when the latter decided to issue the Chaos Slaughter Order, several high-level members of the sect had raised their doubts and were directly killed by him, completely shocking them. Also, keep an eye on the Yunluo Academy at all times. If that Xiao Yan is discovered, no matter whether he's dead or alive, he must be brought to me. Pausing, Black Nether Emperor's cold eyes stared at his two subordinates below like a sharp sword. His tone was filled with intense killing intent. Xiao Yan? He must be the person from the Xiao clan who obtained the #1 position in the 4 academies competition. Both of their hearts trembled, and they hastily responded. They remembered that ever since Black Nether Emperor was invited by the Yunluo Academy to come back, he had started to have a killing intent towards that Xiao Yan. 0 Lord of the Spirit. The hanging pavilion was located at the most bustling street. It was dazzling, magnificent, and had a shocking number of people. It fully displayed the wealth of the dark underworld. Building such a large building in such a place was a symbol of strength. In the hall of the suspended pavilion, a huge crystal was hanging right in front of them. On the crystal, a string of words flowed like flowing light, and the words were blood red. Xiao Yan followed the crowd into the crystal, and his eyes were instantly attracted by the huge crystal. As he was observing, he saw a muscular man in the crowd. The bearded man had separated the crowd and arrived in front of the crystal. He shouted in a low voice. The origin chi on his arm surged and he reacted quickly. He grabbed a string of words that were flowing within the crystal. In an instant, a dazzling light shot out from the crystal, and a strange liquid quickly gushed out from the string of words. It formed a crystal ball. Taking the crystal ball out from the crystal, the brawny man walked towards an old man in gray beside the crystal as if there was no one else around. He placed the crystal ball on the wooden table in front of the old man, and flipped his palm. The things that he took out caused the surrounding people to exclaim in surprise. It was a human head. There were a total of 10 heads. The bloodstains on each head had already dried up. It was likely that they had been dead for a long time. Some of the heads were glaring furiously, but most of them were filled with fear. "The 10 monarch spirit heads are all here." The brawny man's voice was like thunder as he looked at the gray-clothed old man in front of him and said. His strength had just advanced to the Emperor realm. In order to obtain the heads of 10 monarch spirit warriors, he had spent a lot of effort. Even the most convenient spirit weapon had been damaged in a battle. If he could obtain a better spirit weapon this time, it would be worth it. Not bad. They have all reached the monarch spirit level, but... The old man in gray's expression didn't change at all when he faced these heads. His palm touched the foreheads of each of the heads. He nodded and spoke in a somewhat helpless manner. "However, what? I completed it according to the requirements. Sir Black Nether Emperor had already said that the reward of the mission cannot be delayed if I complete the mission of the Floating Lover Pavilion." When the burly man heard this, he became anxious and immediately roared. "It's true that we completed it, but look at these people's heads. The blood has frozen, and the essence of the blood has also been lost. Its effect has also been greatly reduced, right?" The gray-clothed old man snorted coldly, and pointed at the 10 savage heads on the table as he spoke in a slow and steady voice. "Then tell me, what should we do?" The large man gritted his teeth, and spoke with unwillingness in his heart after a long while. The original reward was a middle-grade spirit weapon and 3 Tier 4 medicine pills. Now, I'll exchange 1 middle-grade spirit weapon and 5 Tier 3 medicine pills for you. How about it? Xiao Yan, who was in the distance, could not help but sneer in his heart when he heard this. The gap between a Tier 3 medicine pill and a Tier 4 medicine pill was not small. How could it be made up by quantity? The burly man's face twitched slightly. He gritted his teeth and nodded his head in agreement. The gap between them was indeed too great. However, his main focus was on that spirit weapon. He didn't really care about these medicine pills. Follow me. After the discussion was over, one of the young men behind the gray-robed old man raised his eyelids and walked behind him. Seeing this, the big man hurriedly followed. As for what kind of spirit weapon he could obtain, that would depend on him. The people in the bounty pavilion were restless and restless. Someone entered the range of the crystal and took out the mission that he had completed. There were naturally many people around the crystal that were similar to the gray-robed old man. They checked the requirements of these people's missions one by one, and naturally, someone would pay them the corresponding reward. Just as Xiao Yan was about to take action, the burly man from earlier had already left the hanging pavilion with a smile on his face. It could be seen that the latter was quite happy with the spirit weapon that he had just obtained. After swaggering into the range of the crystal, Xiao Yan followed suit. He suddenly extended his hand and grabbed a line of words that he had already identified. The origin chi whistled as a crystal ball was formed. Inside is the heart of 100 monarch spirit warriors. After throwing a worn-out storage ring onto the table in front of him, Xiao Yan looked at an old man in a purple robe in front of him. Oh! The old man in purple robe looked at Xiao Yan in surprise. This seemingly young man, he actually had the strength to kill 100 monarch spirit warriors and above. Picking up the storage ring on the table, the old man quickly swept his gaze over it. When he saw that the number was complete, he turned his gaze slightly and said with some hesitation, "The quality of these hearts are somewhat uneven." Xiao Yan cursed in his heart. Although they were both monarch spirit experts, it was normal for them to be strong and weak. This old thing was really picky. "What do you think we should do?" Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. After all, his target wasn't here. Naturally, he did not care about the rewards after this mission. "How about this? It seems like it isn't easy for you. The grade of the spirit weapon hasn't changed, and it's still a mid-grade spirit weapon. As for the remaining 100 spirit weapons, I'll give you 60 of them." The purple-robed elder was delighted when he heard this, but his expression remained calm as he spoke. Body transformation pill? Xiao Yan was stunned for a moment, and then he felt wild joy in his heart. Although the grade of this medicine pill wasn't high, it was only equivalent to a grade 3 7-star medicine pill. However, its effect was rather strange. After consuming it, it could transform into a clone. Although it could only exist for a few minutes, the strength it possessed was almost undetectable. However, the key was that it had the aura of the main body. If one did not carefully sense it, they really wouldn't be able to sense it. Xiao Yan had heard of this kind of medicine pill before. However, he could only give up since he did not have the medicinal formula for this kind of medicine pill. If he had this kind of medicine pill, it would be no different from having more life-saving skills. A few clones would appear. At most, 9 of them would appear at once. For assassins who walked in the darkness, it could be considered a holy item that could save their lives. This might also be the main reason why the black-clothed woman had decided to accept this reward back then. "I don't want the middle-grade spirit weapons anymore. I'll exchange all of them for the incarnation pill." Suppressing the wild joy in his heart, Xiao Yan said with an expressionless face. "All right." When the purple-robed elder heard this, his face twitched slightly and he hurriedly agreed. After all, it was a mid-grade spirit weapon. The market price was at least several 100,000 monarch crystals. Although the body transformation pill was extremely rare, it was merely an insignificant skill in the eyes of a true expert. After all, in the eyes of the latter, his control over his aura had already reached a superb level. "Since that's the case, I'll give you a total of 300 body transformation pills. Is that all right?" Although he was inquiring about Xiao Yan, the purple-robed old man had already waved his hand. A young man behind him quickly stepped forward and took out a jade bottle. The jade bottle was filled with a pale yellow medicine pill. Receiving the jade bottle, Xiao Yan quickly scanned it with his soul. 300 Xiao Yans, not one less. Sure, he had no interest in tangling with the purple-robed elder. After putting away the incarnation pill, Xiao Yan walked out. After taking a few steps, he paused and saw a familiar line of words on the crystal. Capture a member of the Xiao clan. Xiao Yan let out a cold laugh and walked straight out. During his previous observation, he had already found out the location of the people of the Dark Underworld. Although he didn't know where the people of the Thundercloud clan were, the final location of the mission was still within the jurisdiction of the Dark Underworld. It was the largest hanging pavilion. As soon as he stepped out of the entrance of the hanging pavilion, Xiao Yan saw two tall and thin men walking forward side by side. The qi that they exuded caused Xiao Yan to raise his brows. Even if these two men didn't have the strength of an emperor cultivation, they were still not far from each other. Frowning, Xiao Yan was about to leave when suddenly, a sword-like gaze shot over. In the next moment, a sharp and angry shout sounded out from the open space, "Xiao Clan, Xiao Yan." One at the same time that the voice sounded, Xiao Yan felt a strong wind whistling over. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of him. The origin qi wildly roared. A chill had already appeared on the neck of the former. Swoosh! In a split second, Xiao Yan's footsteps suddenly changed. He narrowly dodged the sword shadow that was slashed down, and swiftly retreated. His icy cold eyes looked at the human figure not far away. A tall and thin man with a serious expression slowly appeared where Xiao Yan was standing. He held a transparent sword in his hand. The reflection of the sunlight was enough to pierce a person's eyes. The sudden explosive cry of the tall and skinny man instantly attracted the attention of everyone around him. Their gazes looked over. When they saw the clothes that the two of them were wearing, their expressions changed slightly. They are the guardians of the Extreme Star Group. What are they doing here? I heard that the Extreme Star Group has a total of 10 guardians. Any two of them working together is enough to fight an Emperor Cultivation warrior. That young man has offended the guardians of the Extreme Star Group. He is going to die for sure. Xiao Clan, Xiao Yan. Why does this name sound so familiar? After listening to the whispers of the surrounding people, Xiao Yan's eyes were fixed on the tall and thin man in front of him. Just as he was about to speak, the man let out a cold laugh. The transparent longsword in his hand made a clanging sound, and the tip of the sword was pointed at Xiao Yan. When the Yunluo Academy invited numerous experts from the capital of chaos to their meeting, the heavens sent down a message. They said that there was a person called Xiao Yan who was the main force of the Yunluo Academy who won the 4 academies competition's victory. That Xiao Yan is you, right? So that's how it is. Xiao Yan smiled when he heard that. His eyes sparkled. He ignored the surprised looks of the crowd and said indifferently, "Since you know that I am the main force of the Yunluo who won the war against the 4 academies competition, how dare you attack me with just the two of you?" As soon as the words left his mouth, the face of the tall and thin man who had shouted furiously earlier changed. After that, he sneered and said, "Do you know who is the one who wants to capture you? Besides that foreign power, Lord Black Nether Emperor also wants you. You were able to defeat Kang Feng because of luck. As one of the top 10 sects in the chaos, the Extreme Star Group was well informed. Naturally, they knew a thing or two about the strength of Kang Feng." Oh, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. How did this Black Nether Emperor know so much? A mid-grade heavenly weapon and 10 6th-grade medicine pills. As expected of the person who won the 4 academies competition, the reward is really generous. Another man with black hair and shoulder-length hair took large strides forward and revealed a bloodthirsty smile. His feet moved gently. Following the wild roar of the origin qi, he had already rushed towards Xiao Yan. Another person rushed over from the side. The powerful and majestic origin qi caused many of the weaker people around to withdraw. Xiao Yan directly ran into the distance. It was clearly not a wise decision to fight here. Although he did not know why Black Nether Emperor wanted to capture him, given the latter's influence in Capital of Chaos, it was likely that Spirit King Qi would give the order to hunt him down. At that time, he would be surrounded by enemies. Chase him! The man with black hair and shoulder-length hair struck the air, causing the space to ripple slightly. Immediately, his expression turned cold and his cold voice resounded. The thin and tall man snorted softly. His toes gently stepped on the ground and suddenly soared into the sky. He rushed towards Xiao Yan in an overbearing manner. Extreme Star Group is also one of the top 10 sects in the chaotic 100 sects. This Black Nether Emperor really has extraordinary vision. He even made the Extreme Star Group's sect master willing to help him. Xiao Yan rushed towards the distance, but he was thinking in his heart. With his current strength, if he didn't use the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus, it would still be a little difficult for him to fight an Emperor cultivation. However, since the two of them were working together, there must be a flaw. Besides, he had mastered the art of concealment. If he used it well, it wouldn't be impossible for him to kill the two of them. When the three of them just left, within the Spirit King's group, a long time had passed. Someone had already reported the news to the leader of the Spirit King group, who was known as a powerful Spirit King. The Spirit King was a one-eyed big man. He was extremely muscular, and his muscles seemed to be filled with explosive power. One of his intact eyes was like a poisonous snake, and his gaze was extremely frightening. Someone from the Extreme Star Group? After hearing the report from his subordinate, the Spirit King furrowed his brows. After that, he let out a cold snort and revealed a ferocious smile. Hong Xing, this old man. Did he forget about the grudges between us? The protector of his subordinate. How dare he come to the territory of the Spirit Kings and behave atrociously? The Spiritual King's tone was filled with unconcealable anger. His eyes. It was the eye that Hong Xing had crippled. After saying that, the Spirit King stood up and the chair beneath him shattered. The former waved his hand and said coldly, "The kid that Lord Black Nether Emperor wants is also one of them." That's good too. King will personally deal with the two trash from the Extreme Star Group. He will also capture that Xiao Yan and make Lord Black Nether Emperor owe me a favor. Quote, Xiao Yan, even if you run to the ends of the earth, you will still die today. In the capital of chaos, none of the people Black Nether Emperor wanted had ever left. The tall and thin man's name was Shui Man. The origin cheese around his body whistled, as if they were twinkling with thousands of stars. Although his speed was extremely fast, the Xiao Yan in front of him seemed to be getting further and further away, which made him extremely furious. Xiao Yan's brows were cold as he flew past in front of them. His eyes moved slightly as he looked at the land below. Their speed was extremely fast. In a moment, they had left the territory of the Spirit Kings. Just as they were about to approach a vast forest, Xiao Yan suddenly moved and rushed downwards. You want to use the terrain to get rid of us? The man with black hair and shoulder-length hair was called Meng Zhou. In an instant, he had seen through Xiao Yan's intention. He let out a furious cry and spread his 5 fingers. Powerful origin cheese raged out and turned into numerous sharp blades of starlight. They seemed to penetrate through space as they charged towards Xiao Yan. Boom! Xiao Yan, who was falling, was caught off guard. He was suddenly hit by the endless sword of starlight. Without even letting out a miserable cry, he fell straight down. Seeing Xiao Yan being hit so easily, Meng Zhou couldn't help but be slightly shocked. While he was hesitating, Shui Man, who was standing next to him, had already let out a wild laugh. He lowered his body and flew towards the direction where Xiao Yan had fallen. Meng Zhou followed suit with a smile. He was just a little guy who had just broken through to the Monarch Emperor. Even if he had obtained the first place in the 4 academies competition, what kind of strength could he have? While thinking, Meng Zhou followed closely behind. Scorching star eyes. After Shui Man landed in the vast sea of trees, Meng Zhou instantly activated the Extreme Star Group's pupil technique. Starlight seemed to flash across his eyes as he looked around. There were faint star marks flashing around him. Although the Burning Star Eyes was only a low-level monarch spell, it was more than enough to observe the surrounding scene. He's going forward. Shui Man's eyes were also sparkling with starlight. He looked around and immediately found a spot not far away, filled with traces of starlight. Obviously, it was the source of the starlight. There were origin cheese flowing around. I would like to see what tricks he can pull. Meng Zhou sneered. He suddenly stretched out his hand and the origin cheese surged out, smashing the woodland in front of him into flat ground. Hey! Meng Zhou's eyes paused. He immediately saw Xiao Yan, who had soared into the sky from a distance. The clothes on the latter's body were somewhat tattered. Buzz! Shui Man's eyes were cold as his body swayed. The transparent sword in his hand roared like a furious dragon, cutting through the void and aiming at Xiao Yan. The moment Shui Man moved, Meng Zhou suddenly frowned. An endless killing intent came from his back. Meng Zhou turned his head around, but he didn't see anyone. Chi! Why is it gone again? Meng Zhou's expression darkened slightly. His gaze was like lightning as he gripped the longsword in his hand even tighter. While he was muttering to himself, Shui Man, who was in the air behind him, had already stabbed into Xiao Yan's body. The latter only shook slightly before turning into a ball of core qi and dissipating.